Yeah, all right. Shall we?
We shall.
Okay.
Okay, I'm Ashley.
I'm Ashley.
And I am not Ashley. I'm Sadie. And welcome back to the Misfits pod. So today's a little bit different. We're going to try and do video, so we'll have a little bit of more exciting for those that listen on YouTube. We're recording in my basement today since my chitlins are home, so just bear with us. I promise it's always not this chaotic and insane. But hopefully it stays quiet and they stay upstairs with that for a little bit. But yeah, so today we are going to hit a few actual topics. Mostly we're going to hit diuretics in the competitive world. And then we're going to touch a little bit on ozempic, since that seems to kind of be a hot topic going on right now. And then we're also, hopefully, depending on time, because we tend to ramble a little bit, we're also going to hit sustainable weight loss, especially for those that have used ozempic or similar weight loss stuff, or just kind of find like they lose the weight and then they gain it and they're just stuck in that cycle. So hopefully we can give you guys some advice to get out of that. And then, like I said, since we are actually going to hit some topics today, we have a super wonderful disclaimer for you guys from our almost baby doctor.
I'm not a baby doctor. Okay. We just want to remind our listeners that the content provided in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. The views and opinions expressed by the host and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any medical institution or organization. So pretty much by listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that you understand the disclaimer and you agree to its terms. And if you don't, you'll just turn it off right now. Okay, with that being said, where you guys... Let's talk diuretics.
Yes. So, especially because we've had, for those of you that don't follow like kind of the bodybuilding world, there has been quite a few, it seems over the last few years, it's been increasing. And I'm sure there's a multitude of other things that go hand in hand. It's not just, we're not strictly saying this is the only reason or this is the main reason, but this has been a helping hand, I would say, in quite a few of them. And that's going to be diuretics. So, it used to be big. I feel like they've definitely tapered off. There still are some that use them.
Well, first of all, I think we should, diuretics. Why would someone or what is a diuretic? Right?
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess for people that don't actually know what a diuretic is, you can get them prescribed over the counter.
Yeah, there's natural remedies.
Yeah, or natural ones like dandelion roots. I use asparagus a lot, especially that time of the month, or just if I'm feeling bloaty, or if I've just had something that doesn't agree with me. I like asparagus a lot for a natural diuretic,
And that would be fine.
Yeah. Or dandelion root tea.
So pretty much
pills.
Your diuretics,
Yes.
people
are having
are
troubles
using
with.
them. Competitors are using them. They get rid of fluid. So I think bottom line, whether you use them prescription,
that's exactly what it
dehydrates
is.
Right. Yeah. If used in the correct manner, so think of someone with heart failure, they use prescription diuretics so that they have less fluid circulation so that their heart does not have to work as hard. But for healthy individuals like us, competitors, etc., there's really not a safe manner in which you should be using diuretics.
No.
And that's what we're going to discuss.
Yeah, and I don't know, for those that don't understand or not in the competitive world, the reason that can be so dangerous too is, one, especially during peak week and day of the show, a lot of times, especially for some of the harder classes, you're already super dehydrated. Your micros and stuff like that, nutrients and vitamins, are already kind of out of whack. I mean, in general, prep and peak week is not healthy. Stage being on stage,
period, is not healthy.
Yes. And we'll touch that on a later date. Yeah. But with the diuretics, it can really throw off your balances of really important vitamins, like your calcium, your potassium, stuff that makes your heart beat.
I'm going to back up a bit, because I think majority of the audience, we feel like we know all about diuretics and why. But for the audience, just a listener might be like, I don't get it. You use diuretics when you don't have heart failure. What's the point? So you guys explain why someone would even consider, like, why do bodybuilders even want to use diuretics in the first place? Not saying it's good or bad or whatever. First, just focusing on what is the perceived benefit. What do they think is going to happen by using these diuretics, especially prior to a show? Like, what would invite me to do that? Or why do I think that's a good idea in the first place?
So just kind of get like that quote, extra water.
Well, firstly,
Is that
going to
make it drier, harder?
It's from improper coaching.
Okay.
If
Yeah.
your coach tells you to do diuretics, I'm sorry, fire him. There's absolutely no reason why any bodybuilder should ever take a diuretic.
But why would your coach want you to? I guess that's what I'm getting
The
at.
reason being,
Okay.
it dries you out. You're
Which
going to have that
makes
dry, crisp look.
Okay.
Yes, you look
Your muscles pop
flippin'
more.
awesome
Okay.
on stage when you're on diuretics. But the consequences from doing diuretics is not worth your life.
Okay.
Yeah, it
It's
can be
going
really,
to
really dangerous.
severely dehydrate you. You're going to feel dizzy. You're going to feel nauseous. You're going to feel all of these things that your body should not be feeling because the diuretics are pushing out all that water out of your muscles to get you that drier look.
And you're already super dehydrated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I call it Hell Week because I do peak week for a week and a half. So
yeah, that starts about
Yes.
10
So I
days
call
out.
it Hell Week because it's hell. It really flipping is. So
Peak
you're
week
starting
sucks.
off with, depending on your category, starting off with 1 gallon, 2 gallons every single day, maybe even
So
more than that.
that's water loading.
Yes. So you're
Yep.
water loading, and then you're
Can be done
dropping
a
it and dropping it and
Bunch
dropping
of different
it.
ways, yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
And people usually start doing diuretics when they cut out the water, like completely. So then the day before and the day of, they take their diuretics and they're pushing out every ounce of water out of their body for that dry, crisp look. And what is that going to do? It's going to make you nauseous. It's probably going to make you vomit. Like all of these consequences. And in result, it could end up in death. As it has.
The thought of water loading at the beginning was because it messes with your aldosterone. And so what that is that's just a hormone that signals the ADH hormone. It's signaling like whether or not your body wants to get rid of fluid through the kidneys or retain fluid. And so when you water load, it's kind of like you're trying to trick that process. So then when you do start dehydrating yourself and stop drinking water, it puts that into overdrive because it's trying to compensate for what you did at the beginning of the week. The reasoning when you start dehydrating or using diuretics or stop drinking, all of the other things, is because now it's messing with your electrolytes. So you have your sodium and your potassium that are constantly wanting to switch places in the cell. And so when you drive out sodium and water, that can also cause potassium levels to get out of whack. Potassium imbalances in your heart is what can cause your heart to ultimately stop.
Yeah.
Now,
Think about like severe dehydration or that person like on a super hot, humid summer day that's not been drinking water,
not
or
even
like
using
an elderly
diuretics.
Population. Like as medical field, like we see that all the time. That
Now,
kind of process.
I would also argue that when a person, so like I know that use of diuretics was extremely popular, especially in the 80s, 90s. Like that was kind of like the known thing to do. You pop these diuretics.
Yes, but I feel like they weren't taking it to the extreme as bodybuilders are today.
Or were we just not hearing as much about it? Because
could
now
be.
we
It
have
could be,
social
yeah.
media. Now we have
Yeah.
all these, because how many, when you were little, so that, I mean, when we were little, that would be like the 80s. In the news, your only source of news was really the radio and the TV.
Newspapers.
Right. So if
and
you
they're
didn't-
not covering
they're not covering bodybuilding.
XYZ
Yeah.
bodybuilder.
Right. So
yeah.
it may have been occurring. We just didn't hear about it.
Right.
And I'm sure it
I
did,
mean,
but
we were looking, let's see, like I was looking up some statistics, and there was at least 15 top-level professionals that had passed away, and that was a study done in 2021.
Yeah, and like we said, like that's not all saying like specifically like diuretics are the reason that happened.
Right.
But they
there's a
definitely
lot that
played.
partakes into it.
Yes,
Well,
that
look
played a
at-
huge role. in it.
These
Look at-
bodybuilders go hard.
They go hard,
Peak week.
right.
Their depletion is no joke. Like if you hear somebody say, if you feel like shit during prep, you're prepping correctly. If you feel fine during prep, you are not prepping. Like, it's the truth, though, you know?
Yeah, your body goes in, like, starvation mode.
And the thing about it, too, is I think it's really hard to gauge how you're going to end up when you're using diuretics. And furthermore, if you're using diuretics and you don't have the water in the muscle bellies, you start having this deflated look where if you can keep your sodium and your carbohydrate intake, maybe you're manipulating your carbs throughout the week, but if you keep your sodium and your water essentially the same, it becomes a better indicator of what the outcome's going to be, and then you can have that fullness to your muscles.
Yeah, it's such a, like, opposites. Like, you want dry and crisp and dehydrated, but you also want, like, full, and it's such a it's a game. It's really a game that you play.
And I think physique, whether it's male or female, because I'm speaking more from bikini, we don't want the striations. We want the fullness in the muscle bellies. So through my competing, even up to peak week, I was always on the same sodium. It was a gram of salt every day. My water was usually just over a gallon. That was
wonderful.
Exactly the same. Absolutely no water loading. The only thing we manipulated in the end was carbs.
I was going to say carbs,
and
probably. Maybe a little protein.
No,
Protein
that was the same. And if you were lucky, if you were prepared early or ready early, you could reverse into a show and keep adding more and more carbs.
That's what I did my last show, and
you can actually get leaner and fuller.
Yeah, you were dying, and I low-key felt back, so I was, like, smashing, like, a burger and fries. I'm like, this is the best prep ever!
See, I never did burger fries, but
I reversed in.
Yeah,
but
for you also don't do women's physique.
Right, yeah.
Like, it's going to differ on divisions, and obviously we're going to get into that later, but women's physique is a whole new ball game from fitness and figure. Because fitness and figure, I would say that they would prep pretty well the same, give or take.
They're about... Fitness is figure plus gymnastics.
Like, okay, for you fitness gals,
kudos. Sweet God.
Yeah, because you have to get lean and maintain your energy for those high.
If I were to do, I'd be dead. I'd be flipping dead.
Yeah,
I'd be.
So for the listeners, like, really quick reference, physique. Just to kind of break down these three divisions that we are talking about. Figure would be like a martini glass. So think of a physique that is wider shoulders, wider through the back, tinier waist, and then down into, defined glutes, quads. But if you're looking at a balance aspect, they're more upper body dominant.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Bikini would be very equal, like an hourglass. Shoulders should be about the glute ratio width. Small waist. But they're very balanced. Wellness would kind of be like bikini, but they are more lower body dominant. So more narrow shoulders.
I'm going to say this as nice as possible. It's a disproportionate bikini competitor.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
And then physique is balanced all around, but the thing that makes physique different is they are leaner. So they come in leaner, they come in bigger. They're like an anatomy chart. So you should be able to pick out the individual muscles. And so you need those lines. Yeah. You can't have the blurred lines like you can in bikini. Yeah. They don't want you to have lines in bikini.
Well, and too, kind of like I do figure.
About these days, though.
Yeah, true.
I'm smaller. But you can kind of tell, like, just if you're watching, like, the video, if you've seen our picture, stuff like that. Like, obviously, Ashley does bikini, or actually Duncan does bikini, Nelson does figure and physique, and I do just figure. So if you're watching the video, you can kind of see a little bit of the size difference. But again, I'm pretty small for figure, so I've got a lot of growing to do. But just in, like, reference, what we're talking about, you look at our pictures or the video, you can kind of tell a general
and don't you think this
difference.
Is kind of like a what'd you call it that one time, a side something
side quest
so it's kind of a side quest here.
Anyway, diuretics. Focus.
But I mean, it goes hand in hand. I mean,
yes,
if anything,
prep is going to be be and
prep
peak week is going to be
different
depending on your
just for the sake of time too, not trying to rush through, like you said, because we kind of get sidetracked and whatever. I think people want to hear more about the ozempic and the weight loss. Just circling back a little bit with the diuretics, like I said, when you started, I actually did for my first show, and it was my choice. When I did it, I just did it on my show the day before, and my actual I don't even think I did it on my show day. It was the day before, and I can't even remember now, maybe the morning of, I took like one dose. But with that one, my coach was in person. She's looking at me every hour, 2 hours. She is literally adjusting every single thing. Not to be TMI, but when I'm going pee, I'm measuring it and I'm sending her pictures of what it looks like and the output and everything. And that's why I felt when I did it, I felt a little bit more comfortable, but I have a lot more knowledge, and it's not something that I will do again. And like I said, I mean, with that, not a lot of people that use the diuretics are able to, one, have that in-person coaching, and two, I don't think they're going to that extreme. They're not measuring their pee, they're not watching their pee output, and they're not knowing what to look for when they start seeing, hey, this is trending down. Like the people that you're not peeing, or if you are peeing, it's like brown. Oh my god! Like stop. Yeah, absolutely
Drink
not.
water.
Yes,
please.
like I was
for your own safety, please.
Yes. I was actually I actually had just sips of water, again measured by, I was, having sips of water as well. And I had a pee before I stepped on stage. Actually both my shows, but especially the first one I did direct. So again, I don't feel as if I got to a dangerous level, but that's not saying that I also don't know, obviously what my blood work, my levels looked like. But again, I wasn't peeing brown. I was still peeing a measurable amount that had a good color. So again, totally not recommending it, especially with all the knowledge and just the stuff that's recently happened. I would say just stay away from them. But again, people are going to do what they're going to do, and if that's something that you're choosing to do regardless of opinions,
be safe about it.
Yes, those are things to monitor, make
do
sure.
research.
Yes. And I was not I think I maybe took in total between the 2 days, I think I had maybe 2 or 3 doses.
And what was the diuretic you were using?
Just Expel, over the counter.
Expel,
so I think I had like 1 or 2 capsules in the morning, afternoon, and maybe that night. And then I think I had like 1 or 2 capsules the morning of my show. So again, I wasn't even taking that much. And again, watching out for the color of my urine, the output, how I felt. Like my coach was asking me, like, do you feel anything in your stomach? Do you have any tenderness? Do you have any soreness? Like, she was very, very involved in that process. And there's some people don't have that,
I mean, I didn't take full on diuretics, so to speak, in bikini, but it was recommended or suggested that a person could use Midol for the last couple days. So I mean, we use Midol all the time for bloating, period bloating, cramps, and so it was suggested that if you felt like you were just kind of retaining onto some extra fluid, that you could use Midol to help alleviate that. But I mean, I think putting it into perspective, just at the Arnold, there was that Jody Vance, and she wasn't even prepping. She just did it to, quote, look good,
which is
the thought. Like this is all speculation. 20 weeks out.
Yeah.
So
right, she was prepping, but not like in peak week.
Right.
Yeah, where you should have even been anywhere close to dangerous levels.
I know.
That's almost like
all these rumors go around, and now blaming her coach. And
I mean, at the end of the day, she chose to do that.
And she might have done that completely without her coach's knowledge.
Because I think
people do that
people
too.
do think if they get rid of this excess water, that they're going to just magically look better, and that's just not how it works.
No, that's not going to be the make or break
overnight.
Right.
No, exactly. So anyway, so that's our kind of rant on diuretics. If you're going to use it, regardless of our opinions, other people's opinions, make sure you know what to look for. Like I said again, your urine output, the pain, stuff like that. And honestly,
be safe.
So tell your coach. If you have a coach, tell them.
Yeah, don't lie, don't hide it. They need to know this. Because that can also change the water, the carbs, the salt. That can change their protocols for you if you're just doing stuff willy-nilly. You're literally, especially in prep, but peak week, my coach knows everything. Like, everything. You and Chris coach yourself, so, like, obviously, like, you guys know.
I can't get away with
and
shit.
You could naturally do things like you mentioned asparagus. You can use dandelion root.
I have a lot of asparagus.
Midol. You're still getting into pharmaceuticals with that, but there are other foods that naturally help to diurese. And I think it's not. We're not saying it's wrong to want to get rid of some excess fluid, but
there
also
might be better ways,
right? And just think of some of that rebound fluid retention that you also get.
Yeah.
So here you deplete yourself. That was what I was talking about with the fluid overload. You almost, after it's all said and done, your body starts going way into overdrive the other way to hold on to fluid because it doesn't know what you're going to do. And so
last year my prep was rough.
Yeah, so that can cause other issues with fluid overload.
Which, and I think we're going to do like a competing, obviously do a competing 101, peak week. We'll do like some extra competing
I think that might be good.
stuff.
Like, go through everybody's like different.
Yeah, because everyone
prep
peaks.
stages.
Everyone peaks different.
peaks
Everyone
different.
preps different. Even like you and I, because you did figure and physique, and I did figure. Even in that, we still
That too
prepped
totally
and
like
peaked
when you told
way
me how you
different.
peaked, I was mind blown. I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
And I think everyone thinks that are not familiar. I think they just assume we all do the same exact thing, and that's
Yeah, and we don't.
It's not cookie cutter. And again, like we kind of said, I'm not trying to throw shade on coaches, but if you have a coach that's giving 5 different people who are peaking at a cookie cutter thing, like
They're not a coach.
they shouldn't. Yeah,
Right.
and my peak, honestly, it can change from day to day. Like I
As
said,
it should.
Yeah, my coach is getting pictures that whole week every 2 to 3 hours of me.
Everybody preps
Well,
definitely.
and I think we're going to have to get into an episode too of when somebody is starting even that process. Like, how do you go through finding a good coach? How do you
Yeah.
even know like what category to choose?
Yeah.
Because it's not only what you want to do, it's what genetically your body is kind of already headed in that direction, and how much time and commitment
Yes.
and effort are you willing to put into your division? And
Right.
so we'll have to get into that, because then that will also encompass what does the process look like as far as like prep into peak.
Yeah.
Well, that's why Shanique
posing.
Grant, the women's physique Olympia champion, she didn't want to do women's physique anymore because it's hard,
It's hard.
and
yeah.
she dropped down to wellness.
But and she looks really, really good.
She
for
does. I
wellness.
mean,
like she's
I
her
prefer
legs
the
are-
women's physique look myself.
I know, but I think Shanique's just pretty.
But-
like she just has a body that
But
she
some
can
could
fit.
I know.
argue,
She
though,
just looks good.
let's say a person just really hates leg day. Wellness is probably not
Don't
your
do
jam.
No,
Right.
don't.
Just like if someone really
No.
doesn't like training upper body, you probably shouldn't do figure.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
a person needs to be knowledgeable about all of what competing encompasses so that they can be better
We
educated.
might have to do a part 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
This
fine.
is
We're fine. We're fine.
We're good.
But anyway, so I'm sure what
Moving on.
a lot of people are here for is the lovely hot topic of Ozempic, the get skinny quick
I'll try
weight
to keep my
loss
composure.
pill.
I know. I'm gonna tell you. You got to let me go.
So again, so with this, there are medical reasons for it. That is legit.
Yeah.
There are actual people that do need this and do greatly benefit.
Right. Well, I
From
think
this.
let's start.
But that's not everyone.
Just looking at obesity in general. Okay. I think when we're looking in, why are people even turning to these in the first place? The obesity epidemic,
Americans are lazy. I don't know.
it's horrible.
No,
But
Americans are fat.
Americans are fat.
They're
and
fat.
so
And that's not throwing shade. They generally are.
Yes.
They-
What are
they
we
are.
ranked? Top 5.
Probably.
Fattest country.
650 million adults are considered obese, and that is including 39 million children.
That
So-
hurts my heart.
By 2035, more than 50% of the world's population is expected to be overweight or obese. That is horrible. Couple other statistics for you. Currently, 42.4 of U.S. adults are obese, 19.7, so almost 20% of our children are obese. And this has increased by nearly 10% in the last 10 years, 20 years. So why is this a big deal? Well, it's common knowledge that obesity contributes to diabetes, cardiovascular disease, hyperlipidemia, or high cholesterol. And
Just
we know that
lower-
all of those things are bad. So
Yeah,
without
lower
getting
quality
too
of life
sciencey,
in general,
yeah.
too, yeah.
The chronic diseases, hormonal imbalances, to set someone else in the future, mental health impact that obesity has, and then just overall reduced life expectancy. So I think, that's important to hit on first and foremost. And kind of what we were starting to say, like, yeah, we could say that Americans are lazy, But don't you think part of it is the food industry? They have literally
Absolutely.
manipulated us, and they have engineered the food
Food
to
is-
essentially become like crack. It is
Yeah.
addictive.
They've done like studies and stuff where they'll have people connected, and I'm gonna just not even know the proper like terminology and stuff, but where they have like the basically like the stuff that the brain sensors,
The brainwaves.
yeah,
sensors,
where they can
right.
see it. And they've done studies where they've had people literally like eat some of this like processed food, junk food, stuff like that, and they've watched how it lights up in the brain.
Yeah.
And a lot of it does mimic what you would see in someone who is
Addicted
in
to
a euphoric
drugs, right,
space
right.
or addicted to drugs or something like that. And it's especially like sugar. So I'm a big one on sugar. A lot of stuff I'm big on like the no sugar or sugar substitutes. That's a whole other thing in
I
itself.
weaned myself from that.
Yeah.
I will share something
But-
in just a second. You keep going.
But and so, again, but even with that, there are still bad stuff with the sugar-free stuff like that.
well, and think about it. Like, if I sit down
sugar.
a plate of broccoli in front of you and a plate of potato chips, hello, what tastes better?
Yes.
Now, over
Smell
time,
the potato chip, eat the broccoli.
right? Well, like we know that over time you can retrain yourself to actually
Yes.
look forward to your clean
Yeah.
meals. Like we know that, but general population
It's hard
and just
to start.
the
and
industry.
It's hard to start.
Mhm.
Yes.
So we've kind of been set up for failure. So getting into Ozempic, and I'm going to use the term Ozempic, but just know that this, Ozempic semaglutide, it's also used interchangeably with other drugs like Wegovy,
There's a bunch of different like off-brand
Tirzepatide,
or- yeah.
Mounjaro. They're not off brands. They're actually different medications, but they're all within that same family. Zepbound, and also these semaglutides, just in general, they're actually formulated for type 2 diabetes. So the
Your legit actual needed reason for it.
Yes. It's the off-label use of weight loss that is what we're seeing. So Zepbound is actually approved for weight loss in its medication form. Okay, so what does semaglutide do then? So it's helping to improve blood sugar control in adults with type 2 diabetes. That was the original reason. So there's other medications that help to control that blood sugar. So what it's doing is it's mimicking that hormone GLP to stimulate an insulin release after we eat meals. So you need insulin after you eat meals because insulin is like the key that unlocks the cell to allow the blood glucose to go into the cell. So
Yes.
your muscles need glucose, your brain,
Especially your brain definitely needs it.
yes. So but you have to have the insulin to allow that door of the cell to open to let the glucose in. So what can happen over time is that people get insulin resistant. Their
That's
body,
pretty hot topic too. And like in the bodybuilding world too, there's a lot of people that can get like the insulin resistance. And it's hard to drop and do what your body needs to do.
right? So your pancreas keeps kicking out this insulin, but the insulin's not really doing its job. So what the GLP-1 does is it's kind of stimulating this insulin release in response to meals. So it's going to help bring the blood glucose down. It's also going to help improve insulin sensitivity and decrease insulin resistance. The reason you get insulin resistance can sometimes be because of the excess body fat. And let's see, another key mechanism, this is going to make more sense later, but we get the GLP-1s, it's going to cause a reduction in glucagon. So glucagon, that's a hormone that causes increase in blood sugar. So it either causes your pancreas, to get more of the blood glucose, or it's going to trigger the liver to break down stored glycogen. Glucagon, glycogen, it's like different, but sounds the same. Also, so your liver can get rid of stored, or your liver can start to break down non-carbohydrate sources. So this is where we start getting some of that muscle breakdown through amino acids, through a different process called glyconeogenesis. But anyway, so what it's saying is that if we inhibit the glucagon release, then we're not going to be causing the liver to get rid of stored glycogen, and we're not going to be causing the liver to get glycogen from other sources. non-carb sources. So we're stopping that process, so to speak. By doing this, this just helps maintain more stable glucose control. Therefore, it's also going to reduce that need for insulin. So the pancreas doesn't keep kicking out more and more insulin and therefore getting tired. The last, so that was like 2 reasons. That third reason is it has a delayed gastric emptying. Okay, so the food that you do ingest, it sits in your gut longer. Okay, so it's
You're
also
gonna reduce, like, that's where you get, is that like, so that'd be where you're getting like your reduced cravings, your
Yeah,
feelings of
so your
fullness
ghrelin,
longer.
ghrelin, remember that's your hunger hormone. You're not going to have spikes of that. And your leptin hormone, that's your satiety hormone, that's also going to stay stable because you still have food in your gut. So your brain, it takes away the food noise. And I think we can all speak for the majority that, you know, a lot of the problem when people are trying to diet, it's the food noise. They may not even actually be hungry.
Yeah.
It's the constant thought about food.
And I think a lot of times too, and this is just, I mean, coming from a competitor space, and this is going to sound blunt and crass, and I guess I'm not trying to like attack anyone or be mean about it, but the majority of people, when you think you're hungry, you have no idea what true hunger feels like. And that's coming from like the competitive space, like, especially you get down towards the end of your prep, you are hungry 24/7. You are hungry while you're eating, and like, yes, there's been times outside of prep that I've been hungry, like where I just haven't had time to eat, or I forget to eat, or I've got too much going on, and you kind of get like that nauseous, that low blood sugar, like that feeling kind of hungry. But when you are in prep, more or less you are literally starving yourself, and that is true, genuine hunger. And I've cut weight for fights, I've cut weight for powerlifting meets. And I thought I was hungry then, but like you said, it's a lot of that is that food noise. So,
Yeah. So I'm going to stop you right there, though. You just said something super important. So one of the misconceptions of, you know, semaglutides, and like I said, I'll just use Ozempic, is, you know, it's what you just said. You cut your calories down. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's all that Ozempic is doing. It's just taking out the food noise. So whether you're choosing to organically diet through starvation, caloric deficit, fasting, prolonged dieting. No, I'm just saying, like, I'm just naming things that people do.
Yeah.
Or if you take Ozempic, the end result is the same. Your body, and we can talk about that, your body is doing the exact same thing. Yeah. 1, you're doing it without help. 2, you're doing it without the food noise.
Yeah. And I think, just kind of, again, so we're really bad at this, but we're going to kind of try not to walk over each other. Kind of like what you said, though, my opinions on it is, yes, like I said, I think there are medical reasons for it. I think some people who are extremely morbidly obese, if the Ozempic can help them kind of get kickstarted, I think that's awesome. But a lot of people that I have seen and have experience with that have used it are not at that point. They are doing it as I don't want to work hard, I don't want to feel hungry, and I don't want to deal with it. A quick fix, yes. And we'll kind of get into some of the negatives with that. But when you're doing it, like we talked about the other ways, there are healthy ways to fast. There are benefits to specific types of fasting. But when you are cutting calories smartly and correctly, you are still getting proper macro and micronutrients, so you're able to do it in a healthy way. Whereas if you just stop eating and you're starving yourself, whether you're doing that with or without, that's not the healthy way.
No.
That's not the healthy way to
you know,
do it.
think of it this way. So your body, when these people are, you know, one issue is the obesity epidemic. The other issue is people are just across the board under-muscled. And there is longevity studies that show that it can be just as detrimental to be under-muscled, even if you're, quote, lean or, you know, not considered obese. We'll just say that. That's the other issue with under-muscled. And I think there's a misconception. I know there's a misconception with Ozempic, semaglutides, etc., that it causes you to lose muscle. They don't cause you to lose muscle. It's the lack of eating that is causing the muscle to break down.
And not training.
And not training.
Yes.
You're on it.
Right.
Yes.
So imagine that you have a garage, and your garage is full of vehicles. And so imagine you have this garage full of vehicles. And muscle is like your high performance, flashy, really powerful cars. That would be like what muscle represents. And your fat would be representative of, the less flashier cars. They're more high efficiency, compact. They're not as flashy, but they get you from A to B. So when there's a sufficient amount of fuel, aka calories, your body can afford to maintain and take care of those flashy vehicles, aka muscle. However, if there's a scarcity and there's not, there's lack of resources or caloric deficit, or you are prolonged dieting, fasting, all the things, your body starts looking at the muscle as being a luxury, and it's expensive to keep. And your body says, hey, we can't do this anymore. We're going to choose to support the fat or the compact cars because it takes less energy.
Yeah.
So your body breaks down the muscle, turns it into amino acids, that gets turned into glycogen for energy through a different process.
And I think
it doesn't matter. And
Right.
so unless you're sending that stimulus through protein, through strength training,
it has no reason to keep it.
Right. It says, hey, the muscle's worth keeping and we still need it. So let's keep it around. So you have to keep sending that stimulus. And across the board, I think when Ozempic and that's being prescribed, whether it's in an office setting or whether it's people seeking out these compound pharmacy or online, that message is not getting out there. And it is causing people, I think, to potentially be less healthy.
For sure. You're definitely in.
Because they're just breaking down their fat. And then what happens when they get to, just like with dieting, what happens when you keep dieting and dieting and dieting? What happens?
You
hit a
you get
plateau.
tired.
Well, you get tired, but pretty soon your body's like, we can't go any lower, or you're gonna die. So your body compensates, and
your
so you start
metabolism slows.
right. You
Yep.
break down muscle, your metabolism slows, the weight loss stops, and
then
then
you
what
have
do
to
people
keep
do?
Eating less. And
Eating
adding
less.
That's what.
Right.
That seems to be, especially as a female, that is, I guess, what diet culture has taught us is you eat less and you do more cardio, and that's how you keep losing weight. That's how you get skinny.
I literally just made a post about that today.
Yeah, well, Nelson, you and I have talked before, about that. Is people want to tone. Like when you guys are trainers, when you guys get a lot of, especially female clients or your older females, what do they want? I just want to tone up. I want to tone up, right? And
It's like you can't tone up without getting rid of the fat layer on top.
Yes, and it's and I just want to tell people, no, you want to build muscle, and you
Build
don't realize
muscle.
how much. So this picture of this whatever person that you're like, I want to look like this. I want toned muscles like that. No, you just want muscles. Like that's what you want.
That's what you want,
Is
right.
you want muscles.
And that's still years of work.
Yes.
And I think it's
And
important.
eating your damn food.
Yes.
But I think that has to be done strategically. So
Yes.
when, for example, if I have someone come to me and they fill out their food log, and most of the time what I see is they're not eating much. But if I just
And
tell
they
them,
think they do.
They think
but
they
once
do.
you break it down, they're like, oh.
And a lot of it's
I guess I'm not getting a lot of protein in.
Protein's always low, especially
It's
in females.
always protein.
Always low, and
Because they're
usually you're-
scared.
Yes,
They're
and you're-
scared to eat too much protein
Well,
because
a lot of
they're
people
too
don't know.
afraid to get too bulky. You're not gonna
Yeah.
get too bulky. I'm
well,
sorry.
A lot of people I feel like too don't know what good sources of protein
Exactly,
are.
right.
Don't get me wrong. I love peanut butter. I will put peanut butter on scrambled eggs. Peanut butter should be its own food group, but that is not a source of protein.
No.
it's got
It's-
traces.
I
I mean, when you
Got
look at the percentage of
fats.
fat to
Yes.
protein, it is just a high fat, dense food.
and it's not even
Just
the
like
best
avocado.
fat option. Yes.
Right.
You could do like something more like your egg yolks or your avocado or your coconut oil, avocado oil, stuff like that. That would be way better and probably tastier options. Like you can make your food taste good. You can have chicken and rice and broccoli, but you still need a fat source. So throw in some avocado. Throw
I
in
keep
some
my fats
avocado.
low. I don't
But I think
add fats just to add fats. Like
Yeah.
I don't try to get my fats in. I just get my
Yeah.
fats from my
Yeah.
chicken and
I
eggs.
mean-
if I eat eggs.
But I think the bottom line is no matter where you're getting your food, what you're getting your food from, people don't realize that you can't just one day say, I'm going to eat more today, because you will put on body fat. So that
Yes.
needs to be strategically done. You need and you may need guidance to do that.
There's essential fats, and women
Yes.
require more fat.
But
Yes.
you have to do that strategically.
Correct.
Right. So
You don't want to
reverse
blow up like a
diet.
balloon.
Yes, which a lot of people, I'm guilty of it. My first show reverse was really bad. But I also had, and this is kind of like going to lead into that sustainable weight loss. My first show, I went in with the thought of, well, I'm just going to get fat and pregnant anyway. So I had hordes of cookies stocked. Like, I had all kinds of bad stuff. And I just, not that I didn't care, but I just ate. And it showed. And I gained a lot of weight really quick. And this is also what you're seeing with the people
Who lose weight quickly.
who lose the
Right.
weight
They
super
rebound.
quick. They don't have the right lifestyle and plans set up. And again, they're not prepared to come off of, say, ozempic. So they're using that. And again, not trying to throw shade. So I'm going to speak more towards like the people that, for lack of better terms, are lazy and want a quick fix. Americans are super guilty of that. What is the fastest, easiest, least amount of work that I can do to accomplish something? Some aspects of life, that's awesome. Like, to be more efficient, absolutely fantastic. But in the weight loss, body composition, that health-wise, that's not always the best option. Yes, you want to be efficient, but quickest, easiest, least amount of work is not what you want to do.
Well, and I think the doctors are not knowledgeable. Well, they are knowledgeable, but they don't talk about the repercussions of losing so much weight
Yes.
so quickly.
Or not even the
Yeah.
repercussions, but how could you be successful on this medication?
That too.
Use it as a
And-
tool.
Yes,
And-
how
and
to
that's
come
what I
off
think
of
is
it and
missing.
continue, yes, and continue to be successful. And that's kind of what I was.
Or even what
leaning
should you
into,
do while
but-
you're on it? You know, we're talking
Yes.
about protein and the strength training.
Yeah.
Especially if someone's just getting on a compound pharmacy online and they're just ordering their Ozempic, which,
I know one
on a
person
side
who
note,
does that.
it's so expensive doing it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not getting the education.
And you have no
And-
monitoring. No.
Right.
So
I mean, and I think it's pretty obvious. I am pro Ozempic. Regardless, if we want to say, if people are lazy, blah, 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 what we're doing is not working.
right.
Everything we've done in the past 20 years, it's not working. So if we want to say people are lazy, fine, we'll call them lazy, but they're still dying. So if
Yes.
we have tools that can help people with this, I think we should use them, but I think there's a safe way to use them in a way
Yes.
that sets the person up for success.
Yes.
Teach them the behaviors. If you take away the food noise, that's half the battle. And
For a lot
so
of people, yeah,
right,
like,
so
they don't.
and then if you say, okay, the food noise is gone, now you can focus on making healthier decisions because that food noise isn't sitting there saying, eat the cookie, eat the cookie.
Yes.
So now I can make these good food options.
Yes.
Now I start losing some weight. My joints feel better. Now I can go out and walk. Now I feel good. I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to get a trainer. And I have seen this work with multiple people. And
Yeah.
these were people that are close to me in different ways, but these are people that I would have never imagined that to be the case.
Yeah.
They needed not a quick fix. They
needed
needed
kick
help.
start.
They needed
Yes.
a kick start.
Yes.
And now there's a handful of people I think off the top of my head that are doing phenomenally to the point where now we are titrating their doses down.
Yes.
They are active. They are building muscle. But the difference between those people and the people who rebound, like what you're talking about, and they gain all the weight back and they're in this terrible cycle, whether you diet organically or you use Ozempic, they weren't changing the behaviors in the first
Right.
place. And that's why, however you end up back where you were, that's the problem.
You see that a lot with like the weight loss surgeries as well. People get to
Same
a point,
thing.
and again, they can be used as a tool. There are some people like that need it,
And they
but
should
if
be
you're
strength
not-
training.
Yes, but if you're not learning the lifestyle and you're not learning how to be successful afterwards, that is a trap that we fall into. And I see a lot of people who, again, so and I think because you have experience with some people that are not using it the way that the people that you know.
So
have.
what are some bad examples,
that's what's
like
kinda
what you guys
leading-
have seen?
yeah,
Like,
leading
because
into,
I do
so-
think of one that comes top of my head that I'll talk about. But like, where have you guys seen it negatively?
So a lot of people, so the people that I know that I've seen it, whether they admit to it or not, and when you see someone that loses weight rapidly, in my opinion, like like you can tell, like a lot of times their face, you kind of get like what we call like diet face, like you see it
Right, but you're
they're
gonna
kinda,
see
like,
that.
And you
skinny,
look-
sunken in.
But disclaimer, you're gonna see that whether someone diets
Correct.
or uses Ozempic. So
Right.
because that's a term you hear too, Ozempic face. No, we could just call it diet.
It's just diet face. We get that towards the end of prep. You just get diet face.
Right,
It's just part of
right.
it. And there's not, it should not be a lot of fat in your face. So usually that's, for most people, one of the first places I feel like you lose it is usually your face.
Yeah, I agree.
But anyway, like I've seen like you get like the extremely like saggy skin. So and especially when you're not using muscle to fill that space back up. Like quick example,
But-
like when you have like have a baby, think of like kind of that all of a sudden you had whatever baby, now you take the baby out, and now you have all that extra skin.
But
that
you're
takes
gonna-
time.
but you're gonna get that with dieting.
Yes.
So far, I mean, I think what we're saying, you're gonna get with dieting, the
Yeah.
diet
It
face.
depends on the person,
It
though.
depends on the person. Like I've seen extreme like issues with hair where their hair is absolutely falling
Hair
out.
loss, yeah.
But if you
thinning,
diet, you're gonna have hair loss.
and dieting improperly, and so again, and with that, like kind of like what I said before with the Ozempic, what I think people are seeing who are using it incorrectly, they're taking away that food noise, but the food that they are filling with is not your nutrient dense food. It's not your good food. They're
Yeah,
like, hey,
I would
I
say
can
that's
still,
probably more the
I can
issue.
still eat pizza, McDonald's, burgers,
right.
But I'm only gonna have one, and that'll be
Yeah.
good all day long.
I think-
And that's where you're getting these nutrient deficient issues. It can throw off your hormones, especially like your thyroid, stuff like that. I've seen people that have issues with their eyesight, some like skin reactions, stuff like that. And again, obviously, yes, this comes with improper dieting too. But the people that I feel like that I've seen that are using it as a quick fix and not fixing their lifestyle, these are the things that I'm seeing and that I'm noticing with them, because they're still eating the same stuff they were beforehand, but now they just have something.
And that's just
They're
it.
just eating
Like,
less.
Yes, and then now you're having all these issues because they're not using it properly, and they're not
But I
learning
think
how to
you
strength
see-
train and
You know, I still would argue that you can still see that with people who diet.
Correct,
You know,
yes,
let's say they go on the
yes.
new fad diet of the week,
And
and
they
they
come off
choose
and
this.
rebound.
They lose weight quickly. All the things that you just said, we see that with chronic dieting. So whether you're going to use Ozempic or you're going to chronic diet for X amount of time, you know, you're going to see those things.
I feel like if you diet, they're going to appreciate it more.
Maybe.
It's just like with that one TV show.
for the
with-
people that are using it improperly.
Yeah. Yes. So that one show with that doctor and doing all the gastro bypass surgeries and
My
stuff.
600-pound life.
There you go.
I love
So
that show.
he
He's so
makes
savage.
yes, he makes that person diet down to a certain point
Yes.
to hopefully change their mentality and their behavior to appreciate it more,
Yeah,
so that
that's
when
pretty
they
common.
Yeah.
In fact, like some
and I think
insurance
that's
companies,
how Ozempic should be. I would be for Ozempic, but properly, because as soon as you are off of Ozempic and you're not dieting properly, you're gonna revert back to your old ways and you're gonna blow up like a balloon.
And you gain it twice. See, the people
I'm
that
still gonna disagree because the ones who I've seen used correctly,
I think that's a key term. Is using
right,
it
right,
correctly.
yeah,
because they
I
are
haven't seen
changing the
one use it
behaviors.
correctly yet.
Yes, but you're
But
also
you-
you're in the medical field.
Right.
I work
and
in
we're
the medical
not.
field,
Yes.
and I also work
Well, I'm
at
not.
a
You kind of are.
at a clinic that
Yeah.
solely prescribes it,
Yes.
and I work in a facility where it's used for the actual medical use,
Yeah.
type 2 diabetes.
Um.
I'm telling you, I know it sounds like. Okay, put it this way. The sad thing is that the people that have been successful on it, they feel just as accomplished when they have put in the work and they are, making the changes and the behaviors. They feel just as accomplished as someone who dieted.
Yeah.
The sad part is those same people who have made these big changes is now they feel guilt and shame and they feel like they have to hide it because of what society has said.
Yeah.
I think bottom line, in my opinion, we can't necessarily say Ozempic is cheating if we are also going to say, but it's okay to use this supplement and it's okay to use PEDs and
I was
it's
gonna
okay to
say
use anabolics.
It's okay to use steroids,
Right.
but
So I think
cheating is cheating.
I think the key message is do what you want, but if you're going to use the semaglutides, you have to strength train. You just have to.
So
And you have to get your protein in.
yeah,
Bottom line.
Yeah. So not to cut you off, because again we kind of ramble. This is gonna end up being a two-parter. So we kind of went over everything on this one. What we're gonna do is we're gonna stop the video, stop the recording, and we're gonna part 2. We're gonna actually talk about sustainable weight loss, because like I think
Perfect. That'd be like a perfect part
yeah,
two.
common thing that we're talking about is, okay, how do you do this correctly? How do you maintain it? What do I need to do to be successful?
And what
after
might
this
you
in
have
long term?
and what might you have to change as your weight loss journey continues?
Yeah. So okay, so part 2, coming next. Stand by. Okay, bye.